Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to PSGL. I realise I am on mute. No, I'm not actually, thank God. Looking at the wrong thing. Let's quickly hide that. There we go. Hopefully, we are all heard now. Welcome back to the PSGL E-Series. Of course, we're here for round number 2 of the season here at France. Welcome back, everyone, one and all. My name is Joshua Davis, and alongside me, once again, is my good friend Dan Field. Dan, how are we doing?
Doing well, as always tonight. Really excited for the French Grand Prix, especially after a very tough Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, of course, in Imola last week. It was a fantastic battle. Alfie Butcher ended up coming out on top over Alvaro Carreton and Shanaka Clay rounding out the podium there. Hopefully, Josh, we can have a lot more action tonight.
Absolutely. So obviously we're here at the French Grand Prix here in Le Castellet, a beautiful circuit dating back all the way through near the 90s into the early 80s. Of course, an absolutely fantastic piece of race course. We ditched a little bit for about 30-40 years, and then we came back in 2018. It's been a little bit of a on and off track in real life racing, but for the most of the league races we've seen quite all over the years. It's been absolutely fantastic indeed. If you are just joining us obviously and have not caught up with last round, let me fill you in very, very quickly. It is, well, here's the team's championship for you. It is Williams Esports who take the lead of the championship with their incredible 1-2 finish, with Alvaro Carreton leading the way with Shanaka Clay in P2. Alfie Butcher with a 5-second penalty after his race with his contact with Otis Lawrence at Tamburello was deemed his fault and was given a 5-second penalty. So RHG sits second place with 45 points. Veloce Elite sit in the top 3 with 27 points, tied with Haas F1 in P4 there. Parnell doing the team proud in P5 with 25, with team TF10 in P6 with 22. VSR, Viscero Racing, Viscero Esports, whatever you like to call them these days, are P7 with 16 points, with Race Clutch in P8 with 14. FER sits ninth in P9 with 9 points, of course. That's a little bit of a tongue twister. With SRT at the back with P8. A little bit of a disappointing round for them, but hopefully they can punch back through this round. And so far, Dan, if we look to the lineup as well, it's probably one of the scariest we've seen.
Absolutely. It's very intimidating indeed. But of course, this is a very, very high level grid. It's certainly going to be a very close race, especially around a circuit like France. Not too popular between the drivers. Myself, I really do actually quite like this track, aside from that third sector where it gets all technical. But yeah, it is a track that drivers typically don't tend to enjoy. Possibly we could see some dark horses emerging in this one.
Absolutely. So as we look to the lineup, then a few changes across the board. Matthew Alder comes in for Veloce, replacing Otis Lawrence, obviously the PSGL PlayStation F1 Season 30 champion all those times ago. With Alvaro Caraton and Shanaka Clay unchanged, are the only team, the only drivers in their squad, so they'll be racing every season. Modestia Romena and Corden N'Gola, another unchanged team at FER. They will stick with how they played out last time. Hala Marquis and Dylan Warren join the TF10 team over there in TF10. Hala Marquis making his debut tonight. Jack West and Boilam Ferrar join the Par Now team. Obviously, Boilam Ferrar's debut as well. Alfie Butcher and Joost Noordijk unchanged at R8G. Of course, Alfie with his incredible race at Imola. Unfortunate for his penalty later on. Could have been his win in the bag. Conor Muir and Leroy Brown sit at SRT. Conor Muir replaces Antoine Desaluski this round. Luke Smith and Patrick Sipos. Patrick Sipos joins the team as well. The newest pole sitter in PSGL F1, of course, with that incredible lap time over in Brazil on Wednesday night. Piotr Stachulek and the main man there, Thomas Ronhaar, racing tonight for Haas. The driver, of course, who finished P3 in the F1 Esports Pro Championship. The up-and-comer, of course, looking to ruffle some feathers and make a very, very smart debut indeed. And then with VSR Viscero last, it is Alexander Kraft and Felipe Sousa making his debut tonight. And Dan, we should be ready to go in a few moments' time for the French Grand Prix.
Absolutely. It is going to be, of course, the 3 sessions of qualifying before we get into the race. It'll be 18 minutes of Q1 with the top 15 will advance into session, and then from there the top 10 will advance in towards the shootout for pole position. Of course, the 12-minute session, the 12-minute Q3 session is going to be fantastic display this evening. Hopefully we're going to have some great action, but indeed, Josh, we are about to get underway, so it's going to be very, very exciting. Make sure everyone, before we get underway, you go and get your popcorn. I had some before the stream, and I am well and truly prepared for this one.
Get your popcorn out, place your bets. We are ready to go here in qualifying. We'll flick you over to the gameplay. Once we get into qualifying, we'll flick you over right over there, and it is sunny skies over the south of France, which is always very, very nice for the driver's sake, of course. Obviously, could ruffle some feathers over here in the commentary box. Everyone likes a wet race, of course, but thankfully for the driver's sake, it is plain sailing and dry. We're missing one driver off the grid, so hopefully whoever that one person is joins fairly quickly. I think, I'm not sure who we are missing, but they should be joining us very, very shortly. But looking at that, I think, Dan, just quickly talking probably the main point there, Thomas Ronhaar in P9 for Haas making his debut, of course, tonight. Definitely probably your tip for the win and definitely for pole position. But obviously, Patrick Sipos as well, a new debutant, definitely in a lot of form recently, obviously over on the PSGL F1 PC platform. Definitely both drivers looking pretty well for themselves, but could they be like probably the main standouts this race?
Yep. You do have to consider Thomas Ronhaar, Patrick Sipos, the likes of them coming into this season, or this session even for the first time. But then you cannot count out the likes of Alvaro Caraton, Shanaka Clay, Piotr Stachulek. You know, the guys we've already seen in this grid is going to be very exciting indeed. I see 2 race clutch boys, Luke Smith and Patrick Sipos, have decided to come out of the pit lane now. The driver that's missing is Felipe Sousa. He left the lobby as we were loading in to to this Q1 session. But of course, a very familiar sight. We're seeing the intermediate tyres being equipped for all of the drivers coming out for their outlaps. That's just so they don't use a set of the softs, to make sure that all of their equipment is in working order. And then, of course, they can go back into the pits at the end of those runs and then fit a dry set of the tyres and then try and fit their best lap possible.
Absolutely. So we'll be Patrick Sipos first out, obviously on the intermediate compound tyres, as Dan has just said. Strategy, of course, for this race, pretty much the same as every single track on this game. The strategy isn't as sort of high depth as it has been on games gone past. Hard to medium or medium to hard seems to be the only sort of strategy that these guys seem to have this game. But maybe on F1 2023 we might have a little bit of a variety. But nevertheless, we'll go on to Patrick Sipos now as we make his way down into turn 1 for the first lap of the French Grand Prix on the intermediate compound of tyres, heading into turn 1, then braking just about before the 50-meter board, about the 100-meter board. Flick on the left and a flick towards the right, getting on towards the curves all the way down under the Rolex barrier and into the right-hand side of the track. Braking on the 50-meter, flick on the right and a flick towards the left, carrying those curves as much as you can into third gear. Then the car glides out for the right hand on towards the curves once again, staying tight towards the right, and once again letting the car drift out. That's what you want to do around that sector 1 part of the straight. Then we have the Mistral straight. Of course, most overtaking opportunities can be done down here in towards the left-hand turn, which turns in to a little bit of a chicane, if you like. Braking on towards the curves on the 100-meter boards, flick to the left and flick towards the right, riding that curve as much as you can, and then once again on the left-hand side, riding it like a skateboard. Then the car drift out to the right-hand side, then tuck straight back in to the left-hand side. Flat out for this next right-hander on dry tyres. Not so much on the intermediates as expected as you head into sector 2, one of my favourite corners to commentate over and also to drive around. You can gain so much time out of here. A little bit of a wobble out of the exit for Patrick Sipos. Keeps the momentum going as you flick towards the left-hand side, getting it nice and wide and then cutting straight back in to the inside. Run the curb over to the right-hand side, and then you have the final couple of corners to come. The penultimate one hits you in the face to the left-hand side, clipping the curb on the exit into the final couple of corners, missing that curb as much as you can, then onto the exit. Use as much curb as you can. The DRS will hit you in the face and across the line, flat out to the line and across the line for Patrick Sipos at 33.764. We'll probably be going to be seeing about 4 seconds quicker than that, Dan.
Yep. Of course, don't take these times with a pinch of salt. Of course, all of these drivers utilising the intermediate tyres thus far. It's typically around about the 10-minute mark when all the drivers fit on a set of the slick tyres, then come out of the pits. But the fact that we're not seeing many drivers coming out at this point in time on that intermediate set could possibly spell some rain in a later session. I'm not guaranteeing anything at this point in time, but maybe that's just a little bit of speculation from me. I'm seeing in the live chat Kevin H asking if E-Series is just another league race. This is similar to league racing, but it is teams based, taking the pro teams like Race Clutch, Veloce, RHG, Haas, and who am I forgetting? There's one other pro team, and then of course bringing them with the community based. Oh, it's Williams I was forgetting, sorry. And then bringing them to all of the community based teams. This is a tournament between all of them with a £1,000 prize pool, so high stakes at this point in the E-Series. Just about getting underway. Still, it is anyone's game.
Absolutely. Obviously in the second round of a 10-round tournament. Of course, so much more left to go in this session. So much more racing left to go, of course. But it should be absolutely fantastic indeed. But we'll get racing in a few moments' time as well. Alexander Crafts currently on a lap on the intermediate compound of tyres as he heads over in towards sector 3, keeping his lap nice and valid so far as he heads up towards sector 3, flying towards the left-hand side and cutting right back in towards the outside, heading on towards the curves as much as you can. Not a lot of gravel runoff for a lot of these drivers, so if you sense a little bit of danger, a little bit of a snap of the rear, it could be quite detrimental. Flying towards the final couple of corners, up towards the curbs for Alexander Kraft, across the line for him and in towards the line, and he will go to a 134.865 into P3.
So once again, we are seeing all of the intermediate times coming out at this point. No one venturing on a set of these softs. Corden N'Golo just coming in to the box now, and I can see that Patrick Siposh has fitted a set of the softs, and everyone who was on the soft compound attire whilst they were in the pit lane, on the intermediate compound attire whilst they were in the pit lane, have decided to switch back over to the red wall tyre. So we'll have to wait for maybe about just another minute before we actually see anybody else coming out onto the circuits. Thus far, we've only got 3 times on the board: Race Clutch, FVR, and VSR exiting the pit lane. Of course, shaky start to some of these teams, and I'm actually just going to quickly grab the standings once again so I can properly refresh myself, because a week, to me at least, is a long time. Of time at this point, but definitely VSR, I remember, did not have a strong start whatsoever. The same goes for FVR, only 9 points to their name, and Race Clutch only 14 points, and being one of the pro teams, not had a good start.
No, definitely not. Race Clutch not really having the greatest of starts to their campaign. Obviously, a difficult Q2 session as well. Though Soko getting knocked out in P11 there, with Ruben Pedreño in P10 as well. So they're hoping to try and fight back at their home Grand Prix, of course. Obviously, they are based up in France, the beautiful part of the world, one of the most romantic cities of the world as well, over in Paris. We've just had Valentine's Day, and if you are just joining us, happy Valentine's Day to you. A little bit late, but there we go. We're in France, of course, and when in France, anything can happen, and definitely we could have some tasty racing on our hands as well. About 10, just under 10 minutes left to go in the session. Of course, it's only Patrick Sipos, Corden N'Golo, and Alexander Kraft who have set lap times on the board. Sipos currently leading the way with a 33.764. There's a little bit more action going on, so we might see a few of the dry tyres starting to come on, and now the track starts to get a little bit more busy, Dan.
Yeah, finally we are seeing drivers exiting the box, and the first one up is going to be one of the Alpine cars. I believe that is Luke Smith. We saw him come out of the pit lane on a set of the intermediates at the beginning of the session. However, he decided to come into the box at the end of his outlap. So now we will see what he can do. Just going to ride on board with him quickly. It seems like cloud coverage is beginning to build up ever so slightly. The potential threat of rain is there, but I do believe we are quite a ways off of it for the time being. So far, his teammate topping the session with a 1 minute 33.764, but I'd imagine that we are going to see a bunch of quicker times than already. Once one drives out, the floodgates open, and everyone decides to exit the pit lane slowly but surely, we're going to have all 20 drivers on the grid.
Yeah, pretty much everyone out on track now. It's only the 2 Red Bulls, I think. No, actually, it's only Dylan Warren who has yet to leave the pits so far. We have everyone on track so far, and it'll be Luke Smith who starts us out as Dylan Warren just leaves his box. You can see on the HUD there, but Luke Smith will be leading us for the first laps of qualifying number 1 in the dry, as he heads out into Sector 2, flicking into Sector 3. And it should be a pretty nice and tasty lap for Mr. Luke Smith. Obviously, the newest race winner in PSGL F1 as well, with his win at Saudi Arabia. Hopefully, he can try and mimic this over to France as well, as he leaves the final corner to start the first dry time here in France at Le Castellet. Heading in towards turn 1, then braking hard at about the 100-meter board just as the curb starts to come up, as into the left and flicking on towards the right, using as much curbs as possible to rotate the car as much as you can, then riding it on the left-hand side like a skateboard as you flick the car towards the right-hand side and flick it back to the left. The curb abuse is massive around here if you want to get a nice and tidy time, using it once again out of the exit of the left-hand side, a 22.0 in Sector 1, as he heads up towards the Mistral Straight, cutting that left-hand side as much as you can. Make sure you do not invalidate. Heading up towards the line now, in towards the left-hander, braking very, very hard. About the 100-meter board, you want to be braking. Let's see where he brakes just after the 100. Flick towards the left, a flick towards the right as well, using the curb on the left and using it on the exit as well, as much as you can. Heading into Sector 2, then the Delta should be coming up in a few moments' time. Purple of a 49.752 for Luke Smith as he heads up towards the flat-out corner of the right-hand side and into the tricky corners of Sector 3. So much time can be gained here, and many overtakes can be gained here. Flicking, starting right back towards the right-hand side, using the curb on the left, and then you getting quite wide towards the right-hand side, then cutting back to the left-hand side once again, using the curb all the way through like a skateboard towards the right-hand side, flicking it back to the left and into the final corner of this track. Heading towards the final corner now, using that curb on the exit. Stay tight away towards the penultimate one as you head up towards the line, staying in a straight line as much as you can. And it's a 129.632 to start us off in qualifying. Is Joost Noordijk next across the line? Yes, he is. He crosses the line for RHG and goes to a 29.759. Luke Smith already setting the banker.
Colin N'Golo was able to improve up into P3 as Felipe Sousa, not a good time, 6/10 off in P5. Alfie Butcher, last week's race winner, he has gone ever so slightly slower than Luke Smith and looking good for RHG thus far in this session. One of the Williams invalidated there is Alvaro Caraton, a podium sitter. He sits in P4 as more drivers come across the line. I'm trying to see who could be some of the big names on a lap at the moment. Thomas Ronhaar in that final sector as we speak. Alexander Kraft, a decent time from him after struggling in Imola. He's been able to go up into P4 as now through the final few corners. Thomas, we do expect to be right at the front of the order. Of course, Esports Rookie of the Year as he opens up the DRS. Where will he emerge in this session? Currently the time to be at 1 minute 29.6. There it is, Thomas Ronhaar, 1 minute 29.571. He is your new session leader. And that is a very nice start for Thomas Ronhaar and Team Haas.
Definitely so, just getting a little bit quicker than Luke Smith by just under a 1/10 of a second. And Thomas Ronhaar already shining on his opening lap of the season. That is pretty much everyone done and dusted on their first opening lap. 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th have invalidated. That's Conor Muir, Matthew Alder, Dylan Warren and Shanaka Clay. Modestro Mena yet to get a lap on the board. He decided to stay in the pits. And currently it is Thomas Ronhaar topping the timing sheets with a 29.571. Luke Smith in P2 with a 29.632. With Jack West doing well for Parnell again with 29.666 towards him. And Alfie Butcher in P4, driven by his teammate of Joost Noordijk on, Alfie Butcher on a low 0.7. And Joost Noordijk into the mid 0.7s as well, alongside Alexander Kraft and Piotr Stachulek in P7. Very, very tight in the midfield so far, but yet to see the cutoffs yet, as the bottom 5 have yet to get lap times done and dusted. But probably looking at it, you might be seeing, maybe, I'm going to go on a limb with about a low 8 to probably get you safe.
Jack West believes he's safe. He's retired in the pit lane at 1 minute 29.666. There was a one and done for him this evening. I'd imagine the fate's going to be the same for the likes of Ronhaar, Smith, Butcher and Noordijk. However, we are still waiting for a few runners to set their times. I think there are a few big names in there. Shanaka Clay arguably is the talk of the town at the moment in that bottom 5. You really do expect him to be in the upper echelons of the grid, fighting inside that top 5. With that invalidation, it's going to put some pressure on him this evening. I think Matthew Alder for Veloce also in that bottom 5 with his teammate Shanna Kinchi not too far off. Of course, Veloce, they were involved in quite a few incidences last week. Of course, Otis Lawrence being sent in to a spin after contact with himself with Alfie Butcher. Shanna Kinchi was running inside that top 10, but if they can't replicate that in France, they're going to maybe start to fall off the back of teams like Williams and R8G, who seemingly at this point, Josh, are the front runners.
Definitely so. I was just noticing the clouds start to get a tiny bit darker as it was a couple of minutes ago. But yeah, right, R8G and Williams from Imola definitely looking like the strongest drivers out there this season. Haas was definitely up there with Matthias van Erven until he got in a little bit of trouble with Antoine de Zalewski near the end of the race. And that was sort of the end of his race-winning charge. But we'll flick on over to Chanakic, who's out for one more. His teammate of Matthew Alder is as well. So he's heading into Sector 2 right about now. The top 4 of Luke Smith, Thomas Ronhaar, Jack West and Alfie Butcher have come into the pit lane. And they think they're safe on 29.5s, 29.6s and a 29.7 for Alfie Butcher as well. Probably looking like that they are going to be safe in this session. But definitely looking likely is the case. Joost Noordijk retires as well. going to go probably the top 7. Piotr Stachylek might just want to hover out as he is on an outlap at the moment as well. Might want to try to go for one more, but it could be definitely a bit of a hit and miss. 1 minute 30 seconds left to go, so whoever is on a lap now is on a lap. Everyone who's yet to retire is on a lap as we run on board with Chanakinchi for the final runs here in Q1.
Here he is now coming out of the final corner. We'll see what the Turkish driver can do as he approaches the first 2 corners. This quick series of a chicane in towards the braking zone now, just before the 50-meter balls, kissing the apex on the inside and then switching it back over to the right. Off the exit here, getting this short straight run down in towards turn number 3 of Hotel, braking very late through there, keeping it in 5th. A slight dabble of the throttle in the mid corner and then slowing it down for this part of the circuit, getting the run out of turn number 6 and going flat out through turn number 7, making his way on to the Mistral straight, where we're going to see the brunt of the overtakes in this Grand Prix, reaching speeds of excess over 203 miles per hour. At the braking zone he goes in towards this next corner of this Montreal turn number 9, then getting a nice run out of here and towards turn number 10. We'll see what his sector time is at the end of this point of the circuit. He's up by almost 2.5 tenths, so it's looking good for Chanakinchi in that bottom no, he's not in the bottom 5, but he is outside the top 10 and certainly in a dangerous position in towards now the 3rd sector, where it gets very technical through here, using all the track possible. Very late apex through turn number 12 here, and then getting the run on the curbs through turn 13, trying to maximize the track usage, and now in towards this long winding left-hander. They're going to get slowed down for the final corner at turn number 15 of Pont, opening up the DRS for the final time. The clock has struck 0. Chanakinchi towards the line, and he goes into P3, and that will see the Veloce man through.
Brilliant lap time there from Chanakinchi, but a better one from Patrick Sipos, who tops the timing sheets. We're in to the 29.4s as the clouds start to cover over the southern parts of France. Alexander Kraft is still out there at the moment. Shanaka Clay for Williams jumps up into the top 3 as Madesh Romero crosses the line. He is out of qualifying. He could not get a lap time done and dusted and is currently sitting 18th. Colin Muir just crossed the line. He's also out of qualifying in P16. Harlan Marquis is invalidated as well. He's out of qualifying. 2, Felipe Sousa invalidating as well. Dylan Warren very much on the cusp at the moment. He's currently 15th, but I think as Corden N'Golo just slots into P16, might be just about safe. Felipe Sousa invalidates his time. Dylan Warren is safe into qualifying. Alvaro Carasson only P8 for the Spaniard as Alexander Kraft comes back into the pit lane as Piotr Stachylek joins into P3 just outside Thomas Ronha on the front row. 1,000ths quicker than Alfie Butcher as we get into the results now in a very, very chaotic qualifying one. Piotr Stachylek getting P3 out of there as we move over to the timing sheets as Patrick Sipos once again getting the job done in a 29.492 with Thomas Ronha in P2. Piotr Stachylek is P3 with Shanaka Clay in P4. Luke Smith sits P5 with Chanakinchi in P6. Jack West sits P7 with Alfie Butcher in 8th. Alvaro Caraton sits 9th with Joost Noordijk in P10. Alexander Kraft P11 with Bolan Ferrer in P12. Matthew Alder sits P13 with Leroy Brown in 14th. Dylan Warren sits 15th, and Corden N'Golo, Conor Muir, Harlan Marquis, Madesh Romero, and Felipe Sousa all knocked out in qualifying 1. And Dan, just quickly on the weather, it got very, very dark very, very quickly.
Yeah, clouds are beginning to build up in the sky. That could spell some rain, and I did call back to that at the beginning of the Q1 session. Not many drivers decided to come out of the pit lane on a set of the intermediates. That could have been because they were saving them for a potential rain spell. We'll find out as we hit Q2, a 15-minute session to decide the top 10 in this race and who will be advancing into the battle for pole position.
Absolutely. We're getting ready for Q2 now. It got a little bit brighter fairly quickly. So the game starting to play a little bit of a trick on us to see if it's raining or not. But like in Q2, looking likely not. So we have our Q2 lineup of Alvaro Caraton, Joost Noordijk, Jack West, Bolan Ferrer, Matthew Alder, Chanakinchi, Thomas Ronha, and Alfie Butcher, Dylan Warren, Alexander Kraft, Luke Smith, Shanaka Clay, Patrick Sipos, Piotr Stachylek, and Leroy Brown. 15th to 11th are eliminated. We're ready to go for the first laps of qualifying, and Haas lead the fray with Thomas Ronhaar getting out of the way first. Got second place in that Q1 session. Patrick Sipos topping the timing sheets quite late on, but maybe not had needed to with the lap, but decided to go for one more anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And in this Q2 session, especially at the beginning, typically we see drivers using a scrub set of the tyres. That means that this is essentially going to be the tyre that they use to set their laps in Q1, and with that added, where they're not going to be as quick as what we saw at the beginning, at the end of Q1. Of course, this is sort of just to save, once again, another set of the tyres, but I also do think it adds the slight psychological effect of having a slower banker time than what you're going to be able to do. That's going to give you a little bit of a psychological effect of seeing, that green delta in the corner of your eye. It might benefit you ever so slightly and give you more confidence on your runs, and that's why we see everyone at the beginning of Q2 coming out on that set of tyre. Out first is the two Haas drivers, the first one being Thomas Ronhaar. Only one lap in Q1, he was one and done, but he was not even a tenth off the back of Patrick Sipos. Once again, we have to watch for this driver.
Definitely. So Thomas Ronhaar might be the newest F1 esports champion going into 2023. Was absolutely on it in 2022. So unlucky not to walk away with the title, but hopefully can definitely get the job done next season, wherever he may go. Obviously, the F1 esports silly season is upon us, and we've seen some quite shocking moves all the way through, exciting moves, but hopefully it will be beneficial for the drivers there as we head in with Thomas Ronhaar heading into Sector 1 now, out of the exit of Sector 1 as he heads into the final couple of corners. He darts to the Delta now, and it's 21.9, I think that was, just out of the top of my eyes. He heads under the Mistral straight, heading into the left-hander under the banners all the way down the straight, braking hard just at the 100-meter board, flicking towards the left and a flick towards the right for Thomas Ronhaar, the Dutch hotshot of esports at the moment, as he heads up towards Sector 3 now, flying as much as he can with his teammate of Peter Stachelek just behind him, and another purple Sector 2 to boot for Thomas Ronhaar. Very, very short Sector 2. It is only about 3 corners long, flying towards Sector 3, then very, very technical, getting the traction down to a nail, which is very, very difficult to do in this modern day F1 game. There we go. Finally got it out of there as he heads into the final couple of corners. Comes Thomas Ronhaar, flicking towards the final couple of corners. Around the final corner for Thomas Ronhaar, heading up towards the line. The DRS will open right in the face of Thomas Ronhaar as he heads towards the line. It's going to be a 129.861, obviously on a scrub set of soft compound tyres. Peter Stachelek joins him on a 30.398. Alvaro Carlton goes a little bit quicker. So does Jack West with a 30.462. Clay into P2, but obviously most of these times on a scrub set down.
Yeah, look at that from Thomas Ronhaar, then the only driver in the 1minute 29s thus far. Luke Smith gets close, but he's about 300ths off of that time so far. So yeah, Thomas Ronhaar looking very good at this point in time. Alexander Kraft, though, with a 1minute 29.927. Very impressive time from him. He must really enjoy this circuit. Of course, very much struggled in Imola last week as Gianni Kinchi comes across the line to set a 1minute 30.2. Alexander Kraft was very, he didn't have a good time of it in Imola, especially throughout qualifying. So today it is a breath of fresh air, and I think he'll be very relieved that he's able to be in that upper echelons of qualifying, despite, of course, it only being the banker laps in Q2. We've got a few more minutes whilst everyone comes in to the pit lane before we see these guys come out on a fresh set of the tyres.
Absolutely. So, as Matthew Order currently on a lap at the moment for McLaren as he heads up towards Sector 1, then flying towards the right, and a flick towards the left for the McLaren driver for Veloce, flying towards the right and heading on towards the curves as he flicked towards the Sector 1 time of a 20... Oh, excuse me. Sorry if you can't hear me there. 22.1, I think that was, for Matthew Alder. They're heading towards the left-hander. Comes Matthew Alder, breaking hard towards the line with a lap time. There you go, sector 2. Sorry, there to a left, towards the right once again, flicking on towards the curbs as much as you can. And then sector 2 hits you right in the face with a 50.015. Was purple in sector 1. Not purple in sector 2 though, so he's going to have to try and find something in sector 3, flicking towards the wideness of the track, using as much as you can, maybe even a little bit of the painted outside as well, as you fly towards sector 3, then darting right to the left as much as you can, flicking on towards the curves, towards the right-hand side, a flick towards the left as you come out of the final couple of corners with Matthew Alder. Final corner approaches you right about now to the final corner. The DRS will fly towards you now, and Matthew Alder, where can he go? Currently P14, jumps up to P7 and joins Chan Akinci on the 4th row of the grid. A 30.205 for Alder and a 30.259 for Akinci.
Yeah, Dylan Warren coming out on his out lap. He didn't come out of the pit lane at the beginning of this session, and Joost Noordijk is going to follow swiftly onwards. The only drivers out on circuit. Leroy Brown was about to... if he come out a few seconds later, I would have been only PlayStation drivers on the grid. Of course, a lot of these drivers that I know from my time over on that platform, like Joost Noordijk, Dylan Warren, and Matthew Alder. And of course, you would know the likes of Thomas Ronhard, Leroy Brown from your days on the Xbox side of things. So it's good to see everyone coming up from those platforms on towards the PC in this incredible tournament. The PSGL E-Series round number 2. Very excited to get it underway as Dylan Warren in the 3rd sector on his outlap. We'll see what he can do as he just about scraped in towards this session. He actually ended up in 15th by the end of it. So surely Dylan Warren has got to have a little bit of I'm not too sure what I'm trying to say here, but certainly he's going to be feeling a little bit underconfident headed in it towards this session, knowing that to get out of Q2 if he was setting a time like that in towards the 1st corner. Then to begin his lap, we'll see what the young Englishman can do as he hits the 1st sector.
Absolutely. Dylan Warren heading into the 1st sector. Then Hallam Marquis rejoins the session, flying towards the right and flying towards the left comes Dylan Warren, flicking it back to the right-hand side. Obviously, the new protege of esports, so 22.1 for Dylan Warren. Obviously, he's been in the league racing scene for quite some time on the Xbox side of things. Joined the likes of CRG and now over to TF10, of course, as well. So he knows this whole league racing thing quite well, and maybe one of the new talents for F1 esports in the couple of years' time. Heading into sector 2, then what can he start for the Red Bull team? Is going to be a 49.937. Not too bad at all. Comes Mr. Warren as he flies towards the right-hand side, heading on towards the curves as you flick towards the left-hand side, getting nice and wide for the exit, and then starting right back in to the entrance as he heads on towards the curves, flying towards the left and flying towards the right, getting it nice and wide for the exit and getting nice and tight for the entrance as you head up towards the curbs all the way through this lap, flying towards the final corner and into sector 3, braking hard for the final corner, dart towards the left, dart towards the right even, as much as you can. The DRS will hit you in the face under the start line, under the Emirates banner as much as you can, across the line for Dylan Warren, P9 at 30.352. Definitely have to go again. Joost Noordijk is just behind him, heading into sector 3 as well, towards the right and towards the left once again, getting up towards the curves as much as you can. Joost Noordijk did very, very well with R8G alongside Alfie Butcher as well, getting into the top 10 as well. Heading towards the final corner comes the Dutchman as he heads up towards the line now. The DRS comes right at him in the face. Heading towards the line now comes Joost Noordijk, and he will go to a 129.588, the quiz of a lot by about 3/10.
I think that's pretty clear to see that he's done that on a fresh set of tyres, as has Leroy Brown, 1 minute 29.786, as Thomas Ronhard comes across the line with a 1 minute 29.133, laying down the gauntlet in Q2 with just over 5 minutes to go. Alvaro Caraton was able to get close, not close enough though. Alfie Butcher able to creep a little bit closer to the Dutchman's time, as now Boulan Ferrer just crossed the line. I believe Piotr Stahalek It's going to go in to P4 once again. Haas cooking on gas this evening as Shanaka Clay comes up towards the line. He's able to de-seat Piotr Stahalek, and then Luke Smith finds himself in to P5. We've got Jack West coming up towards the line now. He was once again another one and done in that last session, and into P6. He seems to be really enjoying this circuit, as is Alexander Kraft. 1 minute 29.470 to put himself up into P5. Current drop zone is as follows: Leroy Brown, Patrick Sipos, Matthew Older, Chanakinchi, and Dylan Warren, of course. Those bottom four not done a representative lap time. So Leroy Brown, the only driver really in a big pickle.
Absolutely. So Veloce not looking so hot either in 13th and 14th. Obviously yet to go with a new set of soft compound tyres. Leroy Brown on a 29.7. Patrick Sipos on a 38.164. Matthew Alder on a 30.205. Chanakinchi on a 30.252. And Dylan Warren on a 30.352 as well. So the second round of laps are done. We're probably going to head into the final round of stops as well. The final round of laps happening in queue number 2. Probably, I think, as I've just seen, about 4 minutes left to go in qualifying here for qualifying number 2. Bottom 11, yes. Currently knocking out as Thomas Ronhar retires from the session. The first one to retire on a 29.133. A beautiful lap from the Haas man. Should see him through. Currently about 2 tenths quicker than Alfie Butcher as well. And probably looking at a very low 29.5 or a high 29.4 should probably be enough to see you through into Q3, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll find out in just about 3 minutes time from this point onwards, as all 15 drivers are in the grid, and this is a similar sight to what we saw at the end of Q1, where everyone was in the pits, and then as soon as one driver comes out, the floodgates open, all of them emerge from the pit lane. I saw you see one of the McLarens coming out of the pits, and that is Chanakinchi, currently in that bottom 5 on a 1 minute 30.259. Yet to set a representative lap time in this session. It will be a big loss if we saw both Veloce drivers being taken out in Q2, but we'll have to wait and see if they are able to improve as he begins his out lap. He's followed by Leroy Brown, another driver where it's imperative that he has to go again. Matthew Older coming out of the pit lane as well. So now we're seeing all of the runners coming out of the box. I'd imagine that the top 5 seemingly are going to be safe. Luke Smith and Jack West, they might be on the bubble at this point, but Alfie Butcher, he doesn't feel that he is safe at this point. On a 1 minute 29.380, it's going to take a lot for all of the runners in behind him to improve. So we'll have to wait and see. So we hit the 2 minute mark before this session ends.
2 minutes warning left to go in the session. Chanakinchi on the cusp. We're riding on board with him now. Pretty much everyone on track apart from Caraton, Clay and Kraft, who decide to stay in the pit. Clay has just come out of the box now, as I just say that. So has Alexander Kraft. So Alvaro Caraton left to go in the session. As Veloce Chanakinchi coming towards the line now. Thomas Ronhar currently top of the standings on a 29.133. The Haas F1 Esports driver, P3 last time out in the Pro Championship, knows what he's doing around here, and into 2 tenths clear of Alfie Butcher as well. He's currently on a lap as well, and hoping to try and dethrone him of that P1. Alfie Butcher wants that for pride as much as he can. Doesn't necessarily need to go up, but decides he wants to anyway. But Chanakinchi will cross the line now to start his final lap here in qualifying. 1 minute dead left to go, and it is a dead heat to see who goes through into the knockout stand.
Yeah, so Chanakinchi getting his run underway in that drop zone. Certainly in a spot of bother is the Turkish runner, but in towards the first sector, one of the slowest points of this track, going down into 4th gear. Still, once again, all these drivers, despite going at about 60 miles per hour, they don't go any lower than 4th. He's already up by 2 tenths on his lap, so it's looking very nice indeed for Chanakinchi. If he can keep this run up, and we should definitely be seeing him into the next session of qualifying. Now headed down into the braking zone at the end of the Mistral straight and up towards Montreal, turn number 9. Get back on the power as early as possible, cutting that curve ever so slightly, but of course not exceeding the white lines, and then tucking in to the left hand side to get the best run in towards turn number 10, flat out in these conditions, and then up towards turn 11, where you're going to have to apply the brake ever so slightly. About mid corner through here, so it is very tricky indeed. But Chanakinchi utilising all the circuits on the exit looks very nice indeed. Alvaro Caraton, of course, in that pit lane. He is done for the day, as is Thomas Ronhard. The clock has struck 0. No new laps can be begun. And the last one out was Alexander Kraft, so we'll have to wait and see who emerges on top in this session. As out the final corner comes Chanakinchi now, opening up that DRS. We'll see what he can do. He looked very tidy in that third sector. Now towards the line he goes. Oh dear. 1 minute 29.537. He's in that top 10, but with a lot of drivers on laps behind him, could be in a tricky situation as Leroy Brown crossed the line, but he is out of this session.
Yeah, a little bit of a shaky lap for Chanakinchi. Leroy Brown could not go any quicker, and he certainly sits to P12 and is out of the session. Patrick Sipos into the top 2 there with a 29.369 as Matthew Older next to cross the line. He goes P7 for Veloce, so he starts to breathe a little bit more for Matthew Older's sake. For Chanakinchi, I'm sure you're absolutely shaking in your boots. Joris Nordijk crosses the line now and sends Chanakinchi out of qualifying. P6 for him on a 129.417. Who was that crossing the line? I think that was Bolan Ferrer. He goes P11 and is out of qualifying as Jack West is next on the clubs as well. Stachelek goes into P8. Here comes Jack West into P9. Knocks out Luke Smith from Race Clutch as Shanika Clay puts it into P2. I think his teammate of Alvaro Caraton just pits in there. I think it was in P3 there as we head up towards the results, and Race Clutch once again lose a man in Q2. But we look to the results then. Thomas Ronhard tops the session. Alexander Crafts in P2. What a session he's having in France. A difficult Imola has absolutely pulled it back here at France as Shanika Clay sits P3. Patrick Sipos in P4. Alfie Butcher P5. Alvaro Caraton 6 P6. Jos Nordijk is 7th with Piotr Stachelek in P8. Jack West sits P9 and Matthew Older just on the clubs in P10. But once again, Race Clutch losing a man in Luke Smith in 11th. Bolan Ferrer, Chanakinchi, Dylan Warren and Leroy Brown all out of qualifying 2 down.
The big names being eliminated there. Of course, Luke Smith and Chanakinchi are part of the pro team. Certainly going to be a big loss to them. Credits to as well Jack West and Alexander Kraft for being the only 2 drivers from the community teams to make it into that top 10. Actually, Parnell is the only team that's had both drivers in Q3 from both races so far. Of course, we didn't see VSR in that Q3 last week, but we did see Isvan Pookie making his way into that top 10, and Jack West continuing the streak for the Parnell Racing team. So really well done to them thus far. But now it is going to be 12 minutes of Q3 to decide who is going to be starting on pole position for the French Grand Prix in round number 2 of the PSGL E-Series.
Absolutely. So 12 minutes of racing. Well, I say racing, of fast laps left to go in this session. And it's Alvaro Caraton, Jos Nordijk, Jack West, Matthew Elder, Thomas Ronhard, Alfie Butcher, Alexander Kraft, Shanika Clay, Patrick Sipos and Piotr Stachelek all have gone to battle it out here in the southern part of France to get into pole position if they can, as we head into the final round of qualifying. And Thomas Ronhard has been pretty decent in that Q2 session. So was Patrick Sipos as well. He topped Q1. But a little bit of a rocky session for him, but about in that bottom 5 there. So hopefully he can try and lift himself a little bit higher on the grid and come when it matters. But obviously with Luke Smith as well, getting knocked out for Race Clutch again, just sort of happening where it's going wrong in Q2, Dan.
Absolutely, Race Clutch just not having a good time of it so far. A very rocky start in the PSGL E-Series. Of course, remember last week, Rumbajonio had a spin at some point along the way, and that put him way down the order. It was very difficult for him to get back in the group. But of course, don't forget, there are points for all 20 positions in this series, so there is no reason for any driver to give up. They want to make sure they maximize all their points every single race so that their team has the best shots of winning this wonderful tournament, as Alexander Kraft is the first one out of the pit lane for VSR. Didn't see him in Q3 last week. However, he's decided to break the duck for the community-based teams. And here we are now. He's beginning his outlap. Seemingly the only driver thus far who wants to venture out of the pit lane. We'll have to wait maybe a minute or 2 more before we start to see everyone else coming out of the box. But certainly this is where this is what and everything has been building up to in qualifying so far. Of course, the Q3 session deciding who will be starting on pole position, which could be the difference between winning the race and finishing on the podium.
Absolutely. So we're about to get ready for Q3. Let us know in the chat who you think will be on pole position and predict your top three as well. Today's predicted Ronhart, Alfie, and Sipos on the top three. Not a bad shout indeed. Probably the fastest three men in this lobby so far. But obviously you can't count out the likes of Shanaka Clay, Alvaro Caraton as well. Any of these guys deserve to be in that Q3 and definitely can put them names amongst the feathers. It's currently Alexander Kraft who's currently out on a lap. One of the Williams, I think both of the Williams are out on laps at the moment. Alvaro Caraton and Shanaka Clay just following out of the pits. We'll see who's who. It's Alvaro Caraton followed by Shanaka Clay, followed by a Haas and an Alfa Romeo as well, which is the RHG team, of course. But Alexander Crafts will start things off here in Q3 for the first lap of qualifying 3 here at the French Grand Prix in the PSGL E Series. Dan, take it away.
Here he is now headed up towards turn number 1. Of course, this the first chicane, very quick through here, breaking in towards the 50-meter board and then shifting up the gears already up in towards 6th. So they're taking that very quick through the first 2 corners. Headed down in towards turn number 3 and 4. Once again, a very fast series of corners, and that hits you like a ton of bricks because, of course, you then brake very heavily in towards the end of that first sector. Slight correction on the exit of turn number 5, but he's able to recover it in towards turn 7 and on towards the Mistral straight, opening up the DRS to get that drag reduction. Headed down in towards turn number 8. Alexander Kraft been able to avoid traffic thus far on this lap, especially with everyone on their out laps in towards now the end of the second sector, riding over the curves off the exit of turn number 9, and then tucking into the left-hand side in towards turn number 10. Alexander Kraft at the end of the second sector is going to be a 49.7 for the combined sector 1 and 2 time. We'll see if he's able to find an improvement on McLaren on the inside at turn number 11. Could have been a slight distraction, didn't get in the way of Alexander Kraft by any means, but I might have just put him off ever so slightly. And then one of the Haas cars pulling off to the left-hand side, so he's had to weave his way through all the slower cars in front of him. They've all done a fantastic job of getting out of the way. Now and towards the final corner for Alexander Kraft, opening up the DRS and heading down towards the start at 29.849, and I'd expect a lot quicker time than that coming into the session.
Absolutely. Apologies there, ladies and gentlemen. I think we've just had a little bit of an issue with the game. I do apologize, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully, just be 2 seconds with us, and we'll try and get the game rebooted as quickly as possible. But Dan, if you could just talk us through qualifying very, very quickly, we'll get back to you in a few moments' time.
Oh, absolutely. So at the moment, Alexander Kraft with just under 6.5 minutes left to go in this session. He's the only driver with a lap time on the board. However, Alvaro Caraton currently about a tenth quicker than him on his lap. I'd imagine that a lot of these are on the scrubbed set of tyres. So I'd imagine that this crash was actually a pretty good timing because we're not going to be seeing any bounce for pole position. But still will continue along here as Alvaro Caratoni's into the third sector now and towards turn number 14. At this point in time, we'll have to wait and see. A lot of drivers are about to complete their laps. A flurry of cars are coming through that final sector. Alvaro Caraton now coming up towards the line, and he goes into P1 with a 1 minute 29.365, blowing Kraft's time out of the water. Shanaka Clay has gone a few tenths slower. I'll get the gap up to the leader. He's just under 3 tenths slower. Joost Noordijk goes to the top of the order with a 1 minute 29.190. We've got one of the Haas cars coming up towards the line. That was Thomas Ronhar, I believe, invalid on his time, or that perhaps was an outlap. Matthew Alders crossed the line in P6. And we've got Alfie Butcher coming up towards the line next, and he makes it a 1-2 for RHG in this session. Jack West has crossed the line, but he was invalid on his run. So with just over 5 minutes left to go in this session, Joost Noordijk is leading the way with a 1 minute 29.9190. Alfie Butcher is in P2, just under half a tenth off of him. Alvaro Caraton is in P3, and then Shanaka Clay is in P4. So currently the order stands as RHG Williams via Saar, because Alexander Kraft, he's been able to remain in P5 with his run. Piotr Stahelek in P6, and then Matthew Older is the last of the runners in P7. We've got a few more drivers coming towards the line now. Patrick Siposh, I don't believe he's actually on a push lap. He is slower in that second sector. Thomas Ronhart is in sector 3, but he's invalid on his lap so far. And Jack West also, I do not believe, is pushing at this point in time. So there it is. Thomas Ronhart, I think, the big name who is invalidated on with about maybe about 3.5 minutes left to go in this session. Going to be a lot of pressure under his name. And Josh, have you had any luck getting into the session again?
Yeah, hopefully everything is back to normal again. Massive apologies, guys, as we missed pretty much everyone's the first couple of runs in qualifying. But Dan doing an absolutely fantastic job on radio commentary there. But it is an RXG 1-2. US Nordic top of the timing sheets for 29.190 with Alfie Butcher on a 29.237. Alvaro Caraton on a 29.365, followed by William, RXG 1-2 and a Williams 3-4 with Shanika Clay on a 29.641. Alexander Kraft sits fifth with a 29.849. Piotr Stachelek on a 29.892. And Matthew Older on a 30.022. Jack West, Thomas Ronhart, and Patrick Sipos yet to get lapped in time. But 3 minutes left to go of the session. As to come before the storm, I like to say, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely. With 3 minutes left to go, I'd imagine everyone will be coming back onto the circuit. There's no point saving these tyres anymore. You've got to utilise them in Q3 with just under 3 minutes left to go. I can see at the end of the pit lane one of the Williams coming out of the box, and that is Shanaka Clay coming on to the circuit on a fresh set of the soft compound tyre. He's almost half a second off the back of Joost Noordijk. I mean, he's a big improvement. He wants to be challenging for pole position. Noordijk's time was actually very impressive indeed, and Alfie Butcher not too far behind him, so RAG looking very strong in this qualifying session. And we'll have to wait and see where the two Haas boys can slot in. Stahelek in 6th, Ronhart in 9th. That would certainly be a dampener on their spirits, especially after such a strong start in Q1 and Q2. But the slightest mistake around this circuit, that could spell the end of your qualifying. So with just 2 minutes left to go in this session, the pressure is certainly mounting up.
Absolutely. So Shanaka Clay will be the first one to set the final lap here in qualifying. And followed by him, I think, is going to be Jack West just behind him in currently in P8 yet to get a lap on the board, followed by Matthew Older, currently P7, and then Patrick Sipos, who has yet to get a lap time on the board as well, followed by the two RHE guys who currently sit on a 1-2, their best qualifying to date so far. Then it's Alvaro Caraton just behind him, followed by the two Hasses of Thomas Ronhart and Piotr Stachelek, and followed by him, last of all, is Alexander Kraft, who's deciding to go for favourites to be the last one out here in qualifying. Hopefully he should get a lap in no problem, but with 1 minute left to go, a little bit touch and go. But we'll move over to Shanaka Clay, who's going to set his final lap right about now. 1 minute left to go of the session. The French Grand Prix here in Q3 is only for moments away.
Absolutely, here he is now getting his final run of Q3 underway. Placing bets, everyone. Who is going to be taking pole position? All 10 of these drivers have an equal opportunity as now he hits the first sector, riding all the curbs on as soon as he possibly can in towards turn number 3. Slight dabble on the throttle at the midpoint of turn number 4, and then slowing it down in towards the 5th part of this circuit. However, a slight slide through there. It's not looking great for Shanaka Clay so far. However, he has improved by just over a 1/10 of a second now, hitting the Mistral straight and opening up the DRS. Here he comes now down this straight, reaching speeds of up to 205 miles per hour at the braking zone of the 100-meter board in towards this chicane, getting the car stopped as soon as possible, down in towards 3rd, and then short shifting up into 4th as a means of getting the power down as soon as possible. Now up by almost 3/10 of a second. Shanaka Clay looking very strong on this lap so far. Will he be able to challenge the likes of Noordijk and Butcher? We'll have to wait and see as the clock has struck 0. No new laps can be begun. It is indeed Piotr Stahelek, the last runner in this session to get his lap underway, so we'll have to watch out for him as now Shanaka Clay in this final sector. What can he do in towards turn number 14 and 15? Very tricky to get the car through here without running ever so slightly wide, but Shanaka Clay sees no such issues now, opening up the DRS and coming up towards the line. Can he challenge Joost Noordijk? At the line he goes. He's a 10th off of Noordijk, and he's ahead of his teammate Alvaro Carreton. However, Jack West, 1,000th quicker than him, and he'll jump up onto the second row.
Jack West, what a lap from him. Shanaka Clay currently sits P4. Matthew Older has invalidated his time. It's all down to Patrick Sipos, who's coming towards the final couple of corners now. Can he try and mount a challenge to Joost Noordijk and Alfie Butcher, who currently sit at the front of the pecking order? Up towards the line comes Patrick Sipos. He crosses the line now. It's P5 for the Hungarian, sitting and splitting the Williams so far. Next up is currently pole sitter Joost Noordijk. Can he go any quicker and maybe jump into the 28? He crosses the line. It's a 29.004 for Joost Noordijk. What a lap from him. I believe Alvaro Carreton is next across the line. Pole position at Imola, not pole position at France. Thomas Ronha, however, can beat the lot of them at 28.863 for the Dutchman. He sits on pole position as Piotr Stachelek joins him in P4. I believe that is everyone. Thomas Ronha on debut. The hot shot from Holland has topped the timing sheets here in France and is currently on pole position for the French Grand Prix by just under a 10th and a half. Joost Noordijk makes it a Dutch 1-2. Alvaro Carreton sits P3. Stachelek is P4. Alexander Kraft is 5th with Butcher in P6. West sits 7th. Clay is 8th. Sipos is 9th. Matthew Older sits in the top 10. Could not improve on his invalidated lap. And Thomas Ronha setting the times alive once again in pole position.
He comes up big, does Thomas Ronha once again. It's just what we've come to expect from him. Joost Noordijk in P2 was able to improve by an impressive margin, but it wasn't enough to triumph over Ronha. I mean, in this level of grid, a gap of almost a 10th and a half is insanely big. Yeah, so I think he's got to be very pleased with that one there, but only half the job is done and there's no points for qualifying. He's got to do it in the race where everyone is now stacked up together. A lot of stuff can happen. We'll get ready for this one. 28 laps of France. It is going to be a cracking ride.
Absolutely, absolutely. So as we get into the race, looking a little bit dry from our, well, a little bit dark from our side, but we'll be back in a few moments' time, and we'll join you after the word from our sponsor by GT Omega. We'll join you for the French Grand Prix. Welcome back to the PSGL E-Series Championship here in France. We're about to get ready. 5 red lights are upon us for the second round of the PSGL E-Series. We get ready to go towards the lights. We have 2, 3, 4, 5 red lights. The cameras are on. The lights are out. And we are racing here in France. It's a good start from Thomas Ronha. Joost Noordijk getting into the mix in P2 as well. But it's a stormer from Ronha off the lights. Alexander Kraft trying to get into the fun into turn 1. It's Ronha who leads with Noordijk in P2. Carreton sits P3 with Stachelek in P4. Heading up towards Alexander Kraft in P5. He's currently getting harassed by Alfie Butcher in P6. Jack West holding on in P7. There's a whole bunch of cars. The 2 race clutch drivers actually getting into a little bit of a battle side by side. Luke Smith getting a great start in P11 up to P9 with Patrick Sipos losing a little bit of time down into one more place there as Matthew Older down the inside gets the job done. Sipos tries to leave his nose in, not enough there as Bolan Ferrer now tries to join the fun back in P12 as well, but so far it is Thomas Ronha who still leads the fray in P1 with Noordijk in P2, Carreton sits P3, Stachelek P4, Alexander Kraft P5, Butcher 6th, West is 7th, Clay is 8th, Smith is 9th, Older 10th, Sipos 11th, Ferrer 12th, Akinci 13th, Warren 14th, Brown is 15th, Muir 16th, Marquis is 17th, Corden N'Golo 18th, Meta in 19th, and Souza running out the top 20.
Yeah, it's been a dream start for Thomas Ronhart at the moment. However, Joost Noordijk keeping him humble in and behind at this point. It's Shanaka Clay and Jack West having a scrap, slight bit of contact between the pair of them. And Shanaka Clay almost going off the circuit. Alfie Butcher trying to send a move on Alexander Croft as well, trying to get closer to his teammates sitting in the podium positions at this point in time as they head through the third sector at the end of the first lap. We could see some moves headed down and towards turn number one. It's very tricky to make a dive bomb through there, given the fact that it is a fast left-hander. One of the Alpines, that was one of the race car clutch boys, getting slightly out of shape in towards the exit of turn number 15, but coming across the line and on towards the second lap. Thomas Ronhart still leading the way. Joost Noordijk P2, Alvaro Caraton in P3, Stahalek fourth, fifth is Croft, but Butcher closing in behind.
Absolutely so, Alfie Butcher, about 2 tenths behind Alexander Croft at the moment. He's having a great French Grand Prix so far. Brilliant in QA in qualifying, and currently he's proven his worth in the race as well. A tricky Imola for him, fighting back here in France, but he's under the cosh of the quick Alfie Butcher. We run on board with him now, almost side by side. Stachlik will give him the tow. Very, very helpful indeed. Almost going to get boxed in is Alexander Croft. Here comes Alfie Butcher down the inside. Goes the youngster. Down the inside he goes, and Butcher is elevated into P5, relegates Alexander Croft into P6. His next target is Piotr Stachilek in P4, but Ronhart still keeping a nice and tidy line in P1. Joost Noordijk just behind him though, 2.5 tenths separating the two, with Alvaro Caraton just about 5 tenths behind him, but Stachilek exactly 5 tenths behind him as well. Alfie Butcher next on the list for Stachlik, as well as the Haas guys of Haas and RAG doing very, very well indeed. First and fourth, second and fifth for them. And they've kept a tight line. Everyone in the same DRS train as everyone else. We round the final corner to start lap 3. The DRS will be open this lap. And Thomas Ronhart has a 6/10 advantage at the top so far to Joost Noordijk.
That's the key difference, of course, the DRS being enabled at the end of this lap. They'll get a close taste of it down in towards turn number 8 on the Mistral straight, where we're going to see a brunt of the overtakes. Of course, the DRS train will be an issue for some of these drivers back in the order, and since everyone is utilising the DRS, no one really is going to be feeling the effects of it. So we'll have to wait and see how that pans out. Of course, if you get on the battery well enough and you start challenging in towards the braking zones, you could have the position made. We'll have to wait and see, as now off the exit of turn number 7, the train files. Alfie Butcher getting close to the rear end of Piotr Stahalek. He's got his teammate of Joost Noordijk just up the road as they head down in towards turn number 8. Doesn't seem like anyone's trying to make a move. Shanaka Clay close to the back of Jack West, as he is to the back of Alexander Croft. Seems like a little bit of train forming behind the VSR driver. As Alfie Butcher, once again, he's had a good run off the exit of turn number 9, close to the rear of Stahalek through turn number 10. And now Alfie Butcher, once again with the superior line, down the inside and towards turn number 11. That's another move made for the young Englishman, winning in Imola last week, trying to return to form as Jack West and Shanaka Clay having a scrap in behind. Clay to the inside, doesn't quite find the opportunity, and now Croft has been tapped, and Croft almost spent into a half spin. Jack West sort of saved him by catching his car there. However, now sliding down in the order is him there at the end of the third lap. It's all kicking off.
Absolutely so. It's all kicking off lap 3 of 27. Alfie Butcher having a brilliant line and getting the job done on Stachilek, as Luke Smith has a 5-second penalty, I think. So does Shanaka Clay as well, for gaining an advantage from cutting the track. Might be looked at after the race, but right now Clay and Smith have 5-second time penalties as Alexander Croft goes from 5th down to 10th in about one corner. He's currently being harassed by Patrick Sipos. Matthew Alder just in front of him, with Luke Smith and Jack West, with Shanaka Clay leading this little bit of train. They've lost a lot of time to Piotr Stachilek just in front. As we head over to the final couple of laps, there goes Matthew Alder on Luke Smith, as Luke Smith goes very, very wide out of the final couple of corners. Side by side they go. Matthew Alder cuts back into the slipstream. Side by side, Luke Smith is going to try and defend this all he wants. Alder to the outside, Smith defending to the inside. They're so close here. Alder just not enough of pace to try and go around the outside. Not enough grip, not enough speed, and still remains in P9. But now he's under the cosh of Alexander Croft just behind him. 2 tenths separates those two, as it gets very, very tasty in the midfield between 6th all the way down to about P12.
Yeah, Shanaka Clay falling off the back of Piotr Stahalek at this point, and Alfie Butcher just up ahead of the Hassman, getting close to the rear of Alvaro Caraton, who's seemingly being dropped by by Joost Noordijk and Thomas Ronhart just in front of him. So we'll have to wait and see how that impacts this race as now they head through the final sector, one of the most technical parts of this circuit. Very difficult to make an overtake, but as we have seen already in this race, it is not impossible to battle side by side through there as now they head on towards lap number 5. These laps are just flying by at this point, all of them on a set of the hard compounder tyres, so a level pegging really for everyone at this point in the race. Now they head in towards the first sector. Joost Noordijk getting close to the rear of Thomas Ronhart. I wonder if he wants to go for this move. We'll have to wait and see. He's gonna make his intentions clear no matter what by the end of this straight, because if he doesn't push for the overtake, that means he doesn't want to be ahead of Ronhart, and for good reason, of course. It does benefit the drivers from sitting in the slipstream of another. You get to use the RS, you get to save the RS, and you get to save your tyres as well. As Joost Noordijk gets close to the rear of Ronhart, but not going for the move. So I'd imagine we're going to see this train for a good few laps here.
Absolutely. So Shanaka Clay slowly pulling back into the train of Piotr Stachelek. So unfortunate. Obviously, the pit stops are yet to be made. Everyone on the hard compound tyres. So Shanaka Clay and Luke Smith will have to serve that 5-second penalty, as Cornin N'Golo has had a little bit of an issue. He's currently at the back of the field, 7 seconds behind Felipe Sousa in P19. As Alexander Kraft getting quite close to the back of Matthew Alder as well. This midfield battle is getting very, very tasty indeed. Flicking up and down to Thomas Ronhart and Joost Noordijk, between Alexander Kraft and Matthew Alder for 10th and 9th as well. This is a very, very interesting little bit of battle we have all the way through this race, as Matthew Alder going a little bit shallow into the final corner, which might open up something for Alexander Kraft down into turn 1. 50% ERS if he wants to use it, as they head a slipstream down into turn 1. He gets closer and closer and closer and closer. Not enough into turn 1 to get enough going, as Ronhart still leads this way. 0.4 of a second to Joost Noordijk in P number 2. With Alvaro Caraton in P3. Alfie Butcher having a stormer of a Grand Prix so far, taking Shanaka Clay and Piotr Stachelek with ease. Those two obviously established drivers in F1 esports. Alfie Butcher not old enough, I think, to compete in the challenges. 15 years of age is Alfie Butcher, but we have a future F1 esports driver and maybe even a future F1 esports world champion on our hands tonight, and he's currently running in P4, maybe even P3 after this one, as he gets it agonizingly close to the back of Alvaro Caraton. Caraton with a better exit holds on so far as we head into near lap 7 of 27, about 20 laps to go.
We've hit a bit of a lull period. At this point, no one really wants to send a move. At this point, everyone's got that out of their system, and they're just trying to get themselves through until this pit stop period. Thomas Ronhart still leading the way, and he's got plenty of battery at his disposal if Joost Noordijk decided to launch an attack on him. Alvaro Caraton in behind. He's got Alfie Butcher for company, so I'm just noticing clouds beginning to cover a lot more of the circuit than they did at the beginning of the race. I wonder if we're going to see some intermediate conditions towards the end of the Grand Prix. However, of course, we might have seen some runners opt for a set of the medium compound of tyres. Modesto Mena and Harlem Marquis, they have a scrap for P17 and P18, although that doesn't seem too exciting for those positions. Every position does matter, so you cannot write off anything. You want to fight for every spot on the grid. As on lap number 7, Thomas Ronhart once again leading the way with a healthy amount of ERS. Joost Noordijk P2, Caraton P3. We've seen this for a good few laps at this point, and I'd imagine until the pit stop phase hits, we're going to see this pretty much for the entirety.
Yeah, definitely. So as Joost Noordijk getting closer and closer to Thomas Ronhart, almost within a 10th of the Dutchman. Can't quite get close enough into turn 1 as we wait for the last couple, for the pits to emerge in a few moments' time. Probably looking at about 12-ish laps until we see a few people decide to bolt on for the medium compound of tyres, as Joost Noordijk still continues to harry the back of Thomas Ronhart. Can't seem to shake him out of his mirrors, can Mr. Ronhart, but obviously strategy has another play to this one, and it's a decider of when or where to pit. And obviously RHG and Haas will be looking at that very, very closely. And speaking of close, Alfie Butcher getting quite close to the back of Alvaro Caraton as they head out the final corner to start lap 8 of 27. Does Alfie Butcher want anything on Alvaro Caraton as they head into turn number 1? The DRS is afloat for the RHG man heading into turn 1. 3 tenths back, not close enough in a month of Sundays as they head up towards Sector 1 once again. Ronhart still leading this fray. Alfie Butcher in P4, Caraton P3, Joost Noordijk in P2 as well. Mafioda is currently in another train as he's broken away just behind Luke Smith. 1 second, about 9 tenths of a gap between the two of them, flickering all the time as Alfie Butcher might get another tasty run out into the Mistral Straight. 3 tenths between the two of them. The DRS will be working, but to both of their favours as Joost Noordijk will get closer and closer to Thomas Ronhart. He wants to maybe flick towards down the inside to make him nervous. No, he's not. He's going to stay right behind him. Pretty happy to stay in that P2 so far. Will probably, as he said, Dan, will stay like this. I'm probably going to say until the pit stops.
Yeah, they keep bunching up and getting close to the back of each other, but no one wants to send a move. And I just really hope that someone at some point decides, you know what, screw it, I'm going to go for this overtake. Maybe you'll know he's getting very close once again, but then they separate in towards this third sector. I want some action. I want some excitement in this race. Someone relay that to the top 4. We want to see some overtakes in this Grand Prix and some hard-fought battling. Alfie Butcher certainly provided that so far, and he's been on the back of Alvaro Caraton. I would say he is quicker at the moment than the Williams Esports representative this evening. As now off the exit of the final corner they go. No one using the battery headed down in towards turn number 1. It's very difficult, to be fair, to get close and overtake, but we are seeing new fastest laps coming out. Matthew Older, Alexander Croft, they're having they trading that fastest lap in that midfield area, not close to the back of Luke Smith for the time being, but the gap has been bridged between the top 6 and the rest of the order. Shinaka Clay with a 5-second time penalty to his name. He is once again back in that DRS train as now Joost Noordijk getting close to the rear of Thomas Ronhart, and I think Ronhart letting him go through in towards turn number 8 as around the outside goes Joost Noordijk. Thomas Ronhart peeling off to the left-hand side, slowing down and allowing for Joost Noordijk to go through. Interesting tactics from the Dutchman. Alvaro Caraton getting close to him off the exit, as is Alfie Butcher. But we have had a change of lead. Joost Noordijk on lap number 9 of 27. He is your new race leader. Thomas Ronhart, though, he's still very close behind.
Mind games in play for Thomas Ronhart as he lets the lead go to Joost Noordijk in P1 right now. Thomas Ronhart relegated to P2. So here now he's saying, I want a bit of that DRS. Let me give it to me for a little bit. I'm done with the lead for now. As Joost Noordijk now maybe has a chance to try and bolt away. If he do so pleases. Alfie Butcher still on the back of Caraton. Caraton on the back of Ronhart, who's not had the greatest of sectors in the world. And now under the cosh of Alvaro Caraton, Alfie Butcher might be looking at something as well, heading into the next couple of corners. So heading into turn 1, all things nice and tidy so far. Caraton maybe a little bit wide there. Looked on my screen as Alfie Butcher now maybe has a little bit of a chance to try something under the Mistral Straight maybe as they head out of sector number 1. Flick to the left and a flick towards the right for our drivers heading on towards the curves. Alfie Butcher looked in prime condition to maybe have a look for an overtake. This might be the RHG way as now Joost Noordijk is in the lead. The DRS will be available for Alfie Butcher as they head up towards the exit of the Mistral Straight, but Alvaro Caraton just seeming like he has that little bit more straight line speed, and Butcher just has no answer. A little bit of very, very late braking from Alfie Butcher. Got me a little bit scared there, but he decides, well, he stays alive for one other day. As Alfie Butcher continues to harry Alvaro Caraton, Ronhart still remains a threat in Joost Noordijk's mirrors.
Yeah, still, they're teasing us with these battles looming, and then no one goes for the overtake, and I just want to see some action, and I want it right now as Alfie Butcher, he is, once again, as we've seen so many times, getting close to the rear of Alvaro Caraton. All it takes. Alfie Butcher will be right there for the overtake to be made on lap number 10 and 27. We're beginning to enter the signs of wear, I'd say, for these hard tyres. They're certainly not going to be at their best, but they do have to keep on going in this one. I'd imagine that around about lap number 15-16 is where we'll start to see these hard runners come into the pit lane for a set of the mediums to go to the end here. Alfie Butcher gets close to the rear of Alvaro Caraton in towards turn number 3, as is Caraton to the back of Ronha, as is Ronha to the back of Nordyke. Will anyone go for the move in this DRS stream where it is so difficult to make an opportunity stick? We'll have to wait and see as Butcher gets a good exit out of the exit of turn number 7 onto the Mistral straight. They go, opening up the DRS and following in the wheel tracks of Caraton, but no moves being made once again. On lap number 11, we started this race really hot, but everyone all of a sudden decided that they don't want to battle anymore. So we stay on lap number 11 with Nordyke in the lead, Ronha second, Caraton third, and Alfie Butcher in fourth.
Caraton just seems to have a little bit more straight line speed compared to Alfie Butcher. As you can see, about 73% on that ERS compared to Alfie Butcher's about 90%. So Caraton maybe using a little bit out of the exit, out of the missile straight, just to make sure Alfie Butcher stays in front. So Williams maybe seeing that their pace doesn't seem as great as Alfie Butcher's so far. So the ERS might be starting to come into play a little bit, just a tiny bit for Williams as the pit stops start to allude a little bit closer and closer as they head out of the final corner. Nordyke 5/10 of a gap to Thomas Ronha in P2. Caraton about 4/10. Alfie 3/10 with Stachelek waiting in the wings in P5. Clay in P6 with a 5-second time penalty from his misdemeanors near the end of lap 3, I think it was, towards him. So does Luke Smith in P8. Jack West splitting them in P7. A great day once again for Parnell, 7th and 13th, with Jack West in 7th and Buelam Ferrar in 13th. But Alfie Butcher is all over the back once again. How many times have we been saying this one? Alfie Butcher all over the back of Alvaro Caraton. They head out the final couple of corners. No ERS being used once again. We'll flick over to Alvaro Caraton. No ERS used this time around. So maybe that Williams is out and out just a little bit quicker in a straight line compared to the Alfa Romeos.
Could be using a slightly lower downforce setup in that Williams car, but of course they'll be giving up some speed through the corners as they head in towards the third sector, one of the most technical parts of this track where we don't really see any overtakes. I've just had a fantastic camera angle. It was a static shot and then it had all the drivers coming through at the same time. That is really cool to see. Yeah, once again on lap number 12, we've not seen an overtake for a good few laps. I think the last overtake was actually Modesto Mena getting past Harlem Marquis for P17 in this one. So it's only a matter of time before these guys kick it into a higher gear and go for a move. Alfie Butcher, he's close, and now Dylan Warren has decided to come in to the pit lane for the first time in this Grand Prix. A very early stop, I would say, for him at this point, and he's got a 5-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane. So today is really not going TF10's way, but there it is. Medium compound of tyres fitted on to that Red Bull car. And all of a sudden, Patrick Siposh also getting close to the rear of Alexander Croft. We could finally see some battling on lap number 13.
Definitely. So Dylan Warren is the first one to retreat into the pits on the medium compound tyres after lap 13 of 27. I must say, fairly early than I would have thought as Alvaro Caraton this time starting to use a little bit of the ERS as Alfie Butcher, probably the closest he's been out of the missile straight for quite a while. Does he decide to maybe have a look down that inside? No, he doesn't. A little bit too far behind, but that nose of that front wing is so agonally close to the back of the Alvaro Caraton's Williams as he heads up towards the next line. Thomas Ronha leaving a little bit of leeway for Alvaro Caraton as maybe having a look to that outside. Did he want Caraton to go there? He's defending a little bit harder there as he refuses Alvaro Caraton to let go. There he goes down that inside as he has done down the inside. Lovely bit of stuff as now Alfie Butcher has a little bit to the line. That's very aggressive from Caraton, almost forcing Butcher off the track there. Very close indeed. So close indeed, but not quite enough just yet. And Caraton and Ronha and also Butcher starting to show signs of a little bit of battling as shooting off there in the distance goes Jack West into the lead, but he comes into the pits.
Yeah, and finally we're starting to see some battling, and I'd imagine this is for priority in the pit lane. They want to be ahead of their rivals before they strap on a fresh set of boots as Jack West in towards the pit lane on lap number 14. We're almost at the halfway point of this Grand Prix. Now these drivers have got to burn the battery to get by their rivals. As Joost Noordijk, he is still leading the way. He's had a lot of battling in behind him at this point, but I wonder, is the pressure soon going to be applied to the Alfa Romeo representing R8G? He's on the battery off the exit of turn number 7, as is most other drivers who are trying to get the best runs possible. Alvaro Carreton used it pretty much halfway down the straight. He was on the battery, and now it seems like we're back into the rhythm, as now into the braking zone. No moves being made once again. They gave us a flash of greatness and then they took it away from us, but once the pit stops come, surely when they're on a fresh set of the mediums, they'll want to be able to get by on their rivals. And it's only a matter of time before this race finally does pick up after a low-key start.
Definitely. So Thomas Ronhart really hounding down the back of Joost Noordijk. He had a 7/10 gap at one point, but Ronhart agonizingly slithering back into that rhythm once again, as you said there, Dan. Alvaro Carreton still in that P3, Butcher still in P4, Stachulek still holding on to that P5 as well. So got a little bit saucy a few laps ago. Butcher now towards the final couple of corners, riding onto towards the back of Alfie Butcher, as I think that's Chanakinchi and Boilan Ferrer coming into the pit lane. So does Conor Muir. He gets a 5-second time penalty as well. A lot of these drivers really mistaking the pit lane limiter there and speeding a little bit in the pit lane as Ferrer, Muir and Kinchi come into the box for the medium compound tyres. 12 laps, I believe that is, if my maths are correct, on the medium compound tyres. Should be plain sailing for those guys. But we're still waiting for the front leaders of Noordijk, Ronhart, Carreton and Butcher, as Dylan Warren sets the fast up of the Grand Prix, wins the 31s with 31.931. Joost Noordijk starts to slowly gap away from Ronhart once again. 5/10 is the gap, but with the DRS, Ronhart will snatch that right back once again. Rain coming, as Frankie just said, is a very big name that we've had on the cards pretty much for the whole race and into qualifying as well. For the medium likes of it, from the bottom 16 who are put on, probably looking likely we won't see any rain.
Yeah, I mean, it was a far shout from that, I'd imagine. I mean, the clouds really haven't gotten a much heavier, and it's still looking light on the circuit, despite having no sun at this point. As on lap number 15, we're halfway through this race. We've seen some of the medium runners come into the pit lane, strap on a fresh set of boots, and they come out once again. Dylan Warren's been able to pull out 4 seconds to Boilan Ferrer, as he had a 2-lap undercut. We're finally seeing some action down in the pit lane. Joost Noordijk, Thomas Ronhart, Matthew Walder, Alexander Kraft, Patrick Sepos, Modesto Mena, a whole flurry of cars coming in to the pit lane. And then Alvaro Carreton, Alfie Butcher, Piotr Stachulek, Shanaka Clay, crucially both Williams staying out on circuit, not going to be beneficial to them in this race. Clay will have to stay out at least another lap. Of course, actually 2 laps. Shanaka Clay's got to complete this one. Carreton, I'd imagine, is going to box at the end of here, and then Clay will have to go next time by. So certainly at a disadvantage is Shanaka, but it won't be too detrimental, as Thomas Ronhart has emerged from the pit lane behind Joost Noordijk, but crucially, I'd say, behind Jack West as well.
It was so close between Ronhart and Jack West. They went side by side into turn 1, and there goes Dylan Warren down the inside of Thomas Ronhart. This is for position. He forces the Haas man off. He's surely not going to be happy with that one. But Ronhart having a very bad exit out of the pit lane. Cold tyres, and Jack West and Dylan Warren have got the better of them now. Thomas Ronhart has to make this move stick. He goes to the right-hand side, almost hitting the back of Dylan Warren. He wants none of this, does Thomas Ronhart. Down the inside, he goes shortly, having a look to Warren. Not enough there. Warren is thinking, what are you doing? Thomas Ronhart agonizingly trying to get past. Dylan Warren giving the likes of Alvaro Carreton and Butcher a favour, once again shoving in the wall as Thomas Ronhart down the inside, this time gets the job done, but he's lost a huge amount of time, and Warren continues to battle with Thomas Ronhart down the inside. He will go once again as it's ended in contact, and there goes Warren. Warren sends spinning round, front hits rear, Warren round. Thomas Ronhart in a lot of trouble out of the pits, as front row in there. Kuningolo having a little bit of a battle with Joost Noordijk as well, as Alvaro Carreton, Alfie Butcher, the top 5 still decide to pit this lap, as there goes Jack West once again, and Kuningolo's forced off the track as well. It's all happening on lap 17.
Yeah, Thomas Ronhar has got to clear these slower cars in front of him. Meanwhile, everyone else coming out of the pit lane. They're rejoining at pretty poor times. Alvaro Carreton comes out of the pit and he is ahead of Thomas Ronhar. Trying to get a good run on Cordalangolo, who goes off the circuit, and now Ronhar soars by on Alvaro Carreton, getting through very cleanly indeed. Carreton with the worsened warm-up on those medium tyres. Alfie Butcher going to be suffering the same fate as Stahalek to the inside of Cordalangolo, acting as a mobile chicane on his old, harder tyres. Meanwhile, at the front of the order, Joost Noordijk has been able to say see you later, and he's completely cruised up the road. He's 1.3 seconds clear of Jack West, who's a further 5/10 clear of Thomas Ronhar. And now Alfie Butcher close to the rear of Alvaro Carreton, where he's been so often in this race, not sending the overtake in towards the braking zone. But there it is. You can see Matthew Alder trying to get by on Cordalangolo, who is once again just acting in a very erratic manner on his old hard compound of tyres, not benefiting any of these medium runners on a fresh set of the tyres. Shanaka Clay adding to his troubles in this race. He's got another 5-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane.
This is unbelievable. After all of that battling, Jack West now sees himself in a net P2. Thomas Ronhar in a net P3 as well, as Clay and Luke Smith come into the pit lane. Where will they emerge? Noordijk at about an 18-second gap on Shanaka Clay, who has a 5-second penalty, as well as what has happened there at the back. Cordalangolo going well off the track alongside Alexander Kraft, as well as we rejoin to the front field. There goes Patrick Sippos just in the background, side by side with Bolan Ferrer, who's got enough going into turn 1. Just about Patrick Sippos, as it's all kicking off on lap 18. We'll flick back to the battle for this lead now. Butcher versus Carreton versus Ronhar versus West versus Noordijk. Noordijk with a 2-second gap clear of everyone else. This pit stop for Noordijk has worked absolutely wonders for the Dutchman, who just missed out on pole position. I think he qualified on the second row, but what a event he's having so far. Ronhar currently in P3. Could this be P2 as Jack West and Thomas Ronhar go side by side? The two rivals on Xbox moments ago, years ago, and Thomas Ronhar has defeated his old rival. Into P2 he goes, and into P3 goes Jack West as well. And now his next target up front, 1.9 seconds in front, is Joost Noordijk. Alvaro Carreton pushing on Jack West as well. Yellow flags. That's Dylan Warren, I think, again, having a few issues as well as Carreton having a little bit of a look to the inside. Jack West let that go. I think he has just tries to hold it around the outside. Oh, there's contact once again. West and Carreton. West still had that going. Carreton didn't realize he's there. Just about stays the same. This is absolutely incredible. Everything happening there as Carreton still remains in P5. West is still in P5. Does Carreton want anything down the inside? No, he's not. He's going to have a look once again. Front hits rear as Jack West has a 5-second penalty for corner cutting and gaining an advantage. Once again, could be looked at. Probably fair, as Carreton was just about in front. We'll have to have a look as goes into the steward's room. Stachulek is all over the back of Carreton as well. West is having to try and catch up to Alfie Butcher, who now goes into P3 and challenging Ronhar. Joost Noordijk 1.8 in front.
Yeah, it's all kicked off on lap number 18 and 19. I think it's so sign of settling down. Alfie Butcher, the Red Sea parting in front of him. Jack West and Alvaro Carreton both going off of the circuit. Alfie Butcher able to send himself down the inside. Still a big gap between Joost Noordijk and Thomas Ronhar, but slowly but surely that will be coming down as the laps go by. As now in towards the braking zone at turn number 8. We've got another yellow flag. That's Cordalangolo, yet to pit in this race. He's the only runner still on the set of the hards, and his day seemingly done. I think he's had contact somewhere with Harlan Marquis. Shanaka Clay, meanwhile, down in P15. He served his 5-second time penalty that he got earlier on in this race. Now he's got another one to his name for speeding in the pits. He's behind Luke Smith, who is on a very fresh set of tyres as well, but the grid has certainly been shaken up by all of the battling that we have seen. Alfie Butcher close to the rear of Thomas Ronhar. However, I think he wants to stay in behind and work together with the man in the hat. Of course, this isn't a team-based decision, but I think it would just be smart for Alfie Butcher not to battle with Thomas Ronhar so they don't lose more time to Joost Noordijk. Meanwhile, further back behind, Alvaro Carreton, close to the rear of Jack West, who is completely flat on the battery with a penalty to his name, and he's almost out of DRS range. We could see Carreton try and send a move and possibly be followed through by Piotr Stahalek, as now they hit the first sector. I'd imagine the Mistral Straight is where we're going to see the brunt of the battling through here. As now off the exit, Jack West, I believe, as they hit the DRS detection point, has not got DRS, headed down in towards turn number 8. Alfie Butcher, meanwhile, close to the rear of Thomas Ronhart, headed in towards the corner. He's going to look towards the outside line potentially. Ronhart not fighting it too hard on the inside line. He gets on through and into P2. Alvaro Carlton, meanwhile, back behind. He gets by on Jack West. A clean cut, simple move down the inside at turn number 8, the end of the Mistral Straight, and now he's got Thomas Ronhart in his crosshairs.
Alfie Butcher and RHG cooking something fierce. No, I can't even remember what I was going to say. Cooking something fierce in this French Grand Prix. The leader 1-2, Thomas Ronhart in P3. But once again, the mind games start to play for Haas as Ronhart lets Alfie Butcher go. Not really, eager to battle away as Piotr Stachelek gets past Jack West. Jack West going off the track there as now Stachelek needs to try and come back into the DRS of Alfie Butcher. Alvaro Carlton, sorry, there he is. He has got that 9/10 of a second between the two of them, and now the DRS can start to flow. Thomas Ronhart in the DRS of Alfie Butcher as well, and I wonder if Butcher's task now is to keep Thomas Ronhart behind by every stretch of the imagination as you can to try and keep Joost Noordijk in the lead of this race. Ronhart versus Butcher, and suddenly this race with 6 laps to go has heated right up to a boil. Place your bets. We're ready to go for the French Grand Prix. Noordijk leads, Butcher in P2. Ronhart trying to catch up to Alfie Butcher as well, with Carlton waiting in the wings. Stachelek a second behind. It's going to get tasty as they head up to the Mistral Straight. Ronhart with the DRS. No ERS being used at the moment. Butcher a little bit healthier on the ERS as well. Here comes Ronhart into P3. There goes. Does he want to have a look to the inside? Not yet. We're cooking a storm here in France, Dan.
Yeah, and at this point, of course, the driver's standings, they don't really have an effect in this E-Series, so it is all about for RAG securing that 1-2. It would be smart, I'd say, for Joost Noordijk to drop back ever so slightly and give Alfie Butcher the DRS in the next few laps. But of course, at this point, actually, Thomas Ronhart probably doesn't see the benefit of overtaking at this point, because Alfie Butcher be able to use the DRS and then catch him right back. It's all about working together as a team. Thomas Ronhart has his teammate Stachelek in behind, but there is the roadblock of Alvaro Carlton in his way as Harlan Marquis in the pit lane. Fitted a set of the soft compound tyres. He could snatch the fastest lap away in this race. I wonder who actually has that at this point. It's not too important currently, as Luke Smith gets by on Modesto Mena with 2 lap fresher medium compound tyres. The Ferrari's not making it easy for him as the FBR representative running in their best position so far in this series. Luke Smith looking to the inside in towards turn number 1. Clean cut, simple move. Modesto Mena, though, gets a little bit squirmy off the exit there. He cuts the corner, gets a warning, and that is a 3-second time penalty added to his name. He stays ahead, crucially, of Shanaka Clay. I think if he were to slow down, he would have lost time to the Williams, and maybe that is a little bit of controversy between the pair of them there as off the exit in towards the Mistral Straight they go. It's still a lot of action left to be had in this Grand Prix.
Absolutely so. It's battling everywhere you look. Ronhart on Butcher, Sipos on Alder as well. Currently looking at 6th and 7th, currently 7th and 8th, but with Jack West's penalty, this could change any way, shape or form. Ronhart still harrying the back of Alfie Butcher, but Butcher doing an incredible job to keep that gap very, very high to his teammate of Joost Noordijk as they head with 5 laps to go in this race. Conor Muir in the wars as well. He's lost a few positions further back as Matthew Alder now having to fight back on Patrick Sipos. Sipos gets the job done, but with Alder, a 3-second penalty added to his name. Mena and Shanaka Clay still continue to battle for 13th and 14th. This is not where Shanaka thought he would be in this French Grand Prix. Mena trying to defend like a lion as much as he can. Shanaka is surely having none of this one. Does he want to have a look to that inside line? Not quite yet. Still remains in that 14th place, but we'll flick over to the top steps of the podium. Noordijk still leads, Butcher in P2, and RHE 1-2 so far is looking pretty pretty decent for the RAG team. Thomas Ronha can break that if he wants to. A P3 so far, but he's all over the back of Alfie Butcher. Keraton could sneak in this one if something goes horrendously wrong. Jack West is now starting to claw back into the DRS of Stachulek as well. And now Stachulek has a little bit more of a part to play. He's been probably told to push to try and catch back into Alvaro Keraton. You can see pretty much flat on the battery is the other Haas man to try and catch up to Keraton. And this could be a tasty final 5 laps down for them.
Absolutely, as they continue this battle onwards. Joost Noordijk still leading the way from Alfie Butcher. However, Thomas Ronha, he is closing that gap in the way of the ERS battle. Alfie Butcher, he's got about 10% less than Ronha, and that could be the difference maker between a 1-2 for RHG and Thomas Ronha, disrupting their party as Shanaka Clay, he finally gets by on Modesto Mena in towards turn number 10. However, Mena not making it easy for him in towards now turn number 11. Shanaka Clay on the outside line manages to get the move done, but he's lost a second to Luke Smith at this point. As meanwhile at the front of the order, seemingly that's one of the closest gaps that we have to watch out for in this race, as Harlan Marquis sets the fastest lap on his fresh set of soft compound of tyre. You can see one thing that I've noticed is Joost Noordijk, I think he is beginning to drop off the pace ever so slightly. I imagine that is intentional to allow for Alfie Butcher to close in towards DRS range. These two got to be in a Discord VC with their engineers, feeding them advice and working out the best way to win this race. A 1-2 would do wonders for them in the championship, especially if it is with 2 wins out of 2, as now they hit the Mistral Street once more. I'd imagine that Thomas Ronha is going to wait until the last few laps to really go and send this one on Alfie Butcher. So for the time being, RHG's 1-2 still remains intact.
Butcher starting to raise the heat ever so slightly. The gap is starting to get a little bit lower between himself and his teammate of Joost Noordijk, as Patrick Sipos gets the job done up into P6. Cooking a storm is Patrick Sipos so far for the Race Clutch team, currently sitting 6th and 12th with about 3-ish laps to go. And now Sipos, his next task is to try and catch up to Peter Stachulek in P number 5 to try and get it back into that DRS. But Jack West wants a little bit for himself as well, trying to battle with Sipos as well as we head up towards the front of the field once again. Ronha is just starting to get a little bit difficult to try and break in to that 1-2 tenths of a second that he has been for quite a while on Alfie Butcher. But we wait and see. Lap number 25 of 27 will hit right about now. There we go. 2 laps of racing to go. Ronha in P3, Butcher in P2. Joost Noordijk a second and 3 tenths in front of Alfie Butcher so far in P1. This is starting to get very, very tasty with 2 laps to go.
Yep, here we go with the really end game, I would say, of this race. Gotta watch out for someone making the moves at this point. They can't use the battery after the race is finished, so surely whoever saved up the most, they're going to have the biggest advantage. That is Alvaro Keraton so far in that top 5. He's got 40% in his Williams, so he can use that to his disposal. It seems like the top 5, realistically, the only drivers with an actual chance of taking victory in this race, as Thomas Ronha, he closes to the back of Alfie Butcher but doesn't use any of his battery, headed down in towards the end of the Mistral Straight. Joost Noordijk still leading the way. However, he has used up quite a lot of his battery. He's got less than 10% in his Alfa Romeo. You can see the RHG representative. He's got that blinking red light at the rear of his car. That means that he is going to have 50% less power deployment from that battery. That's how it works when it gets in towards those low power ranges. So certainly they'll all be scraping the bottom of the barrel, trying to get every bit of performance out of their car, headed on towards lap number 26 of 27. This race has only just begun, as now Joost Noordijk, he'll begin with 2 laps to go.
Penultimate round of this French Grand Prix starts now. It's been a hellacious day here in PSGL in the E-Series for the French Grand Prix. Ronha on the back of Butcher, 2.5 tenths with 2 laps remaining. But with Keraton starting to lose that gap ever so slightly, might be in a position where he loses the DRS very much late on. Butcher and Ronha have been cooking together so far as they head out of Sector 2 in towards Sector 3, Sector 1 into Sector 2, should I say. say. Ronha really trying to catch up to the back of Butcher as much as he can. 25% on that Haas and about 11% on the Alfa Romeo. Butcher has been using a lot of that ERS as much as he can. Karaton looking at the freshest as well with 37 and Sachelek on about 21. So anyone, pretty much Karaton, if something goes horrendously wrong, if he tries to catch up, anything could happen. Ronha is going to wait until the last lap to win this Grand Prix. He catches up to Butcher. This is going to be an incredible last couple of laps, Stanfield.
Here we go then. Alfie Butcher in the wheel. He's closing to the back of Joost Noordijk. Not got DRS at this point. It is in the interest of R8G if Joost Noordijk backs off ever so slightly and lets Alfie Butcher into his DRS range. That will be allowing for him to defend more easily against Thomas Ronha. However, seems like Joost Noordijk not budging at this point, and Alfie Butcher is certainly going to be in a tricky situation as off the exit of the final corner. To begin the final lap of this race, Thomas Ronha has got to send it this time by if he wants to finish ahead of Alfie Butcher, headed in towards the first corner for the final time now in this race. What will happen? We'll find out in just about a minute and a half time, as now here they are in the first sector. Joost Noordijk is finally beginning to back off. Alfie Butcher will be in that DRS range come the DRS detection point off the exit of turn number 6. However, I think the crucial thing is the difference in the ERS. 6% for Butcher, 25% for Thomas Ronha. But here they go now for the final time down the Mistral straight. Can Thomas Ronha close this gap? He's lost a lot of time to the back of the R8G driver, headed in towards the braking zone. There you go. That could have been his best opportunity. Gone and done. Joost Noordijk still leading the way. Butcher in second. Ronha remains in third.
Absolutely, that could be Ronha's ticket for a race win down the drain. He's 3/10 back on Alfie Butcher. He's closed light quite a bit out of the exit into 1/10, into a half a tenth. Surely this is the time now for Ronha to make anything down in towards the final couple of corners to try and ruin this R8G 1-2. Side by side they might go, not quite enough. Joost Noordijk might have just won the French Grand Prix and bring home a 1-2 for R8G. A brilliant day in the sun for Joost Noordijk. He's been brilliant from night and day. It's brilliant for R8G. They round the final corner. Joost Noordijk takes victory in front. A brilliant day for R8G. Joost Noordijk wins the French Grand Prix. Alfie Butcher makes it a 1-2 for R8G. What a day for them. Thomas Ronha sits P3 for Haas. Alvaro Karaton is P4. Stachelek is 5th. Sipos is 6th. Bullenferro is 7th. Kraft is 8th. Shadakinchi is 9th. Smith is 10th. Alder 11th, West 12th, Brown 13th, Sousa 14th, Mena 15th, Clay 16th, Muir 17th, Warren 18th, Cordingolo is 19th, Harlan Marquis finishes at the back. What a race we've just had, and R8G are the second team to get the 1-2. Williams took the 1-2 last time. R8G are back on fine terms. A 1-2 for them. Joost Noordijk opens his account.
Absolutely. So it is really been incredible for R8G this evening. Alfie Butcher in P2, keeping up with his podium streak. And Thomas Ronha, in his debut this evening, has managed to take it on to the podium. As what a race this has been, and certainly one that will definitely be pivotal in the championship. So really well done to all the drivers this evening. I'm hoping we get to talk to them in the interview room, as Cordingolo sets the fastest lap of the race, headed in 19th position. It's once again been a tough day for FBR. It's been a very bad day for TF10, but it's seeming like the biggest beneficiaries of this evening, without a doubt, is R8G. Really, really well done to them.
Absolutely, teamwork makes the dream work, as it has been said in the chat. And R8G, the men of the hour. Patrick Sipos gets the driver of the day, and why not? So, a brilliant race from him, trying to fight up the order as we get into the podium ceremony and our final race results. What a race for R8G, and once again see themselves on the top step of the podium. This time, Joost Noordijk, it's his turn to take the top step. Alfie Butcher was on there last week with a 5-second penalty. Later on, was demoted to P3. And so Williams 1-2. This time, the favour swings back into the Haas team's favour, and it's Joost Noordijk who takes the win here in France. Here are your 4 race results then. It's Joost Noordijk who takes the win here in France, with Alfie Butcher finishing P2. Thomas Ronhaar on debut from pole position sits P3. A little bit went down the drain near the pit stops, with Alvaro Caraton in P4. Piotr Stachelek sits P5 with Patrick Sepos in P6. Bolan Ferrer is 7th with Alexander Kraft in P8. Shanna Kinchi sits 9th with Luke Smith in P10. Now, Matthew Alder is 11th with Jack West in P12. Leroy Brown sits 13th with Felipe Sousa in 14th. Medeshri Meta is 15th. Shanaka Klasic 16th. Conor Muir is 17th. Dylan Warren is 18th. Corden Ngolo is 19th with the fastest lap of a 1:31.052. And Harlan Marquis is 20th at the back of the field. And downfield, what a race here in France we just had there.
Absolutely, and I think Joost Noordijk, he just benefited the most out of the pit stops. Thomas Ronhaar getting caught in traffic, and I think he's not going to be too happy with the likes of Corden Ngolo and Dylan Warren, especially when they made contact and sent Warren into a spin. A lot of action this evening, a lot of penalties. I think the stewards are going to be quite busy with appeals and reports this evening, so it's certainly going to be an interesting one to speculate. But fantastic race, and a really, really well done to R8G. A fantastic display from them this evening. And I'd imagine with Shanaka Clay being that far down the order, there are going to be a good margin ahead at the front of the order.
Absolutely. So what a race indeed we've just seen there. Once again, R8G probably have a very stern helping hand after that one. Obviously, with Williams not scoring very highly there, 16th and 5th for them. R8G might have just swing that back in their favour as well. Apologies there if you have just seen the chat. I've completely forgot that was there. Massive apologies for that, but sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully nothing bad was happened there, but thank you very much for that one, Dad. That was fantastic once again. But let's talk about that race a little bit more. It's a brilliant teamwork once again for RHG, but obviously part of the Haas team that might have been a little bit more teamwork working with Haas as well.
Yeah, well, of course, it is listed in the rules. I think it's like 18.1. Teams can't work together. So if Haas and R8G, if they're found to be working together, that can't fly. So there will definitely be a penalty headed their way. But I'd imagine that is not the case, even though they are close at working. R8G, of course, the team that powers Haas F1 Esports. I think people are right to speculate that there is some teamwork going on there. But I'd imagine with these drivers being as respectful as they are, and clearly they did want to race for the win today. Thomas Ronhaar tried his best to get to the back of Alfie Butcher, but the teamwork of the two R8G drivers was superior in the end. So R8G utilising their partnership to the best degree today.
Absolutely. So I think we have Thomas Ronhaar in the waiting room. See if we can try and jump him in the queue. There we go then. Here is our P3 finisher today, Thomas Ronhaar. Thomas, it was your debut today. You got pole position by just under 10th and a half there. A little bit of a difficult race from you near the end there, but just talk us through how that went for you.
So beginning the race, I didn't do quite the strategy, especially with the fuel. So during the race, I had to save a lot of fuel and let the RG guys pass, because otherwise I wouldn't have made it to the line with enough fuel. Because at the end, I was only, I believe, 0.1 or maybe 0.2 laps of fuel extra, and I was in the DRS the whole race. So I had to be behind them the whole race, and that was basically my POV for the whole race, is staying behind them and. Maybe getting a bit frustrated with Dylan. Obviously, he pushed me over again a few times in the race and gave me 2 warnings. But yeah, I guess if that's what he's here to do, then that's fine for him. But happy to get P3.
Absolutely. That's the pit stops probably were quite a little bit of an interesting one from you there. You came out in quite a bit of traffic. Obviously, you were talking about that with Dylan Warren. Did you think that if everything went to plan, you could probably be fighting with that win and maybe fighting near the front with Joost as well?
Yeah, definitely. If I didn't lose that much time, especially during the pit stop phase, I would have had a good chance of getting a win, definitely. But just having to take P3 today. Good points definitely for Haas, and moving on for the rest of the season.
Absolutely. And your home Grand Prix next week at Zandvoort, if you are selected, obviously, for Haas, you can forward to that one?
Um, if I'm selected, I think it's gonna be a good one. Obviously, got an esports pole there, so can't really complain about the pace there. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
Absolutely. Dan, any thoughts for Thomas before we go?
Uh, no questions from my side of things, but really well done on your debut this evening in the E Series, and getting a podium and having to fight the two R8G drivers. It was very difficult from your side of things, but you were able to prevail. So from me, really big well done on your podium today, Thomas.
Thank you, Joshua. Thank you. Also, thank you. What's your name? I forgot your name. Shit, Joshua. There you go. Thank you as well. All right, see you in a bit.
Thank you very much, Thomas Ronhard, there for your P3 victor tonight. But Dan, I think that's pretty much all there is to it. I don't think we have anyone else waiting for an interview in our chat. But that has been the French Grand Prix here in the PSGL E Series, and a pretty good one, to be fair.
It off pretty slow at the beginning of the race, but it definitely did pick up after the pit stops, and then it sort of slowed down towards the end. And then the final lap, Thomas Ronhar, he certainly did try for the overtake on Alfie Butcher, but it didn't quite work out in his favour in the end. So I'd say it was certainly an interesting race, but maybe we're going to see some more exciting ones later on in the season. And I can't wait for the E-Series to continue next week.
Absolutely so. But I think that brings us to the end of the stream here, end of the French Grand Prix. It's been 2 rounds of absolutely fantastic racing here in the PSGL E Series. We are back next week for the Dutch Grand Prix here in Zandvoort. Thank you all very, very much for watching. And thank you to all our mods this evening for keeping the chat nice and friendly. Thank you to our sponsors, GTO Mega, 5% off all their codes when you use the code down below, listed in the description. But for myself, Joshua Davis and Dan Field, thank you all very, very much for watching. And we will see you next week for the Dutch Grand Prix. Take care and good night.